Hey Joe, so for my interview today, I'm interviewing Erin. I have her on the phone right now.
Hello, what's up?
So today we're gonna talk about like basically just like the deep sea. So like I guess to start off, like because I know you obviously are in like environmental studies and like you've taken like some marine science classes, but like do you know like anything about the deep sea?
Well, we've done some deep sea units in my marine science classes, and I've seen like the usual nature docs, but I'm definitely no expert.
What do you like what do you know? Like what like when you were in class and stuff, like what you guys talk about?
We talk a lot about how like the deepest parts of the ocean are the trenches where like the plates are converging or diverging,
Hmm.
and about how there are new species discovered in the bottoms of these trenches every time anyone does a dive. A lot of them are blind or they bioluminesce. There's a lot of crazy adaptations to pressure.
Yeah, do you know like why some of those like things are like for example, like why they would have evolved to like bioluminesce or like why they're blind?
I think some of them bioluminesce for like mating purposes, and some of them bioluminesce to confuse predators or their prey. And then the adaptations to pressure. There were so many of them. Like a lot of them are like jelly-like substances that are more moldable, I guess, under
Hmm.
pressure.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, and then like for why do you think like a lot of them are blind or like don't have eyes?
Well, so dark down there. A lot of them don't need eyes, and they instead use like the brain, the part of their brain that would be focused on sightseeing for other senses like touch and like electric, um, like picking up like the electric waves and
Yeah, like
stuff.
impulses and stuff. That's actually
Yeah.
cool. I didn't really know about that. Like obviously I know like the they it makes sense not to have eyes because like it'd just be like a waste of energy when you can't see anything, but I didn't know that like that part of their brain was used to like enhance other things, which is like pretty cool.
Hmm.
Um what else do you know like when they go on dives and stuff like how they get down there, like what exactly like what like a deep sea dive would like consist of?
Well, they have to go down in like really fancy, expensive ships that are pressure resistant, since the pressure gets so crazy down there. I know a lot of them are like orb shaped, and they have like arms and stuff that they can reach out and like grab stuff and take samples. There's a bunch of different types of equipment that you can put on them that take samples, and like there are some that just take pictures, which are the least destructive way to take samples, and there are some that will grab a whole core of sediment, and that is obviously pretty destructive to the natural habitat, but it's a good way to scoop up like a bunch of, uh, I guess, samples at once.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you think like do you think it like matters that much like when they're taking these cores and stuff, like do you think it's like that destructive to the ecosystem, or you think it's like can kind of like handle it and it's okay like because they're not doing it a lot, or do you think it's like too like destructive?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's no more destructive than any other science experiment that you would do on land that requires you to take samples. It's just kind of necessary, and it's not like they're drilling for oil or anything crazy. So I think the minor disturbance is definitely worth the scientific knowledge that we gain from that.
Yeah, I know, 100%. Yeah, we were in class one day, we did like a um basically like he had it set up where we were doing our it was like a simulated dive. So he like made the room all black and we had to have like notebooks like they take down and like have you heard of Alvin?
No, I haven't.
So that's like the submersible. I'm pretty sure that's the submersible that they use to like they go in and take down. So um there's like two different kinds of oh, actually the video that we watched wasn't they weren't actually in the thing, but like they were controlling it from the ship because we were pretending we were like in the control room. But like had it up on the screen like a Nautilus dive that they did, and like there's two different like types of like robots that you can use. There's like a ROV, which is like a remotely operated vehicle, and then an AUV, which is like an autonomously operated vehicle. So like the ROVs are the ones that like you see like they're kind of like the big boxes that they like put over the side of the ship, and then there's like a cord that like connects it, like a really really thin cord that connects it all the way up to the ship, and then they can like control it from the control room doing like they use like arms and stuff, and they'll try and like get samples like that way. So they have like this grabber thingy, um, and it'll like either pick up like little chunks of rock or like they have like these two different types of bottles that they put in the basket. So like when they're before they go on the dive, all the scientists have to like load up the ROV with like the baskets, like with all their equipment, and like if they forget something, then they're kind of like screwed. But they like have these things called major sampler bottles, which they use to just kind of get like of like just pick up some of the water down there, and then they have like gas tight ones that actually trap like all the gases and stuff that are at depths that would normally like escape and leak on the way up. So that's like pretty cool. And then they'll try and collect like some animals and stuff and bring those back up just to like look at. But we've been like doing a lot of the talk that we've been having in classes about like seamounts and like hydrothermal vents and like the hydrothermal vent communities and everything. And it's crazy just because like hydrothermal vents usually like pop up for only they're honestly they only last for like about 10 years, which is crazy because they'll be like these huge like abundant communities. And with all, have you seen like tube worms? I'm sure you've seen like pictures of tube
Yeah,
worms, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So they'll have like all these like huge tube worms pop up, and like tube worms are actually like the fastest growing animal. I think they can grow like up to a meter a year, I think it was. Something crazy like that. So like these things are like huge. They all pop up there, and then once the vent dies, because like usually they're on like ridges or like faults in the crust where like hot gases and stuff are like escaping. Like the water will get heated up, and like the that's what like bubbles out. They'll once that like moves and the vent isn't there anymore, like providing all those minerals, all the animals and stuff like die, which is like crazy. So it only lasts for like 10 years, but then it's interesting to see too because like different hydrothermal vent communities have like different species, but some of them also have the same. So like a lot of what we talked about in class was like how would they be able to get from one place to another because they're all what sessile is the word, right? Where they don't move.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're all like sessile. So like the tube worms and all the clams and mussels and stuff like get stuck in one spot and then they stay there. Like once they root down, they don't move. So it's like how do you think they would move like from vent to vent, and we like talked about that a lot. And did you guys ever talk about like whale falls or anything in class?
Yeah, we definitely did. Those are a huge source of nutrients for the bottom feeders down here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like that's like one of the theories is like little like organisms use those as kind of like stepping stones to get like from one ecosystem or one area to like the next, and that's how like some of the vent communities can be kind of similar but like also have differences because like the animals can like move but not some of them can't, so it's just like very interesting to see like what species are like similar in like each different like community and area.
Hmm.
But have you heard at all about like what's going on kind of currently with like deep sea mining? Like have you heard anything about that?
I've heard a couple of things, especially with like offshore mining off the coast of like, the eastern coast. A lot of people are talking about how just disturbing it is to the ecosystems. I saw something in one of my classes. We talked about how the deep sea is really important for biodiversity because although there aren't as many animals, like in quantity, there are
Hmm.
more like species of animals than you see in somewhere like a continental shelf region. So
Yeah.
that was like the qualm that a lot of people had with deep sea mining, is that there's so much biodiversity and there's so much we don't know about it.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is we there's like so many new like species being found down there and like all these like little different variations of like worms and stuff that like they don't even have names or anything because it's like so much work to like if you like discover a species to like name it and like go through that whole process because then you have to like study it and like find out where it fits in as far as like taxonomy and everything. So like
Mm-hmm.
scientists like are like finding all these new species, but they're not like naming them, not going through them, like doing all that because it's like all this work and they don't get like any money or like really anything out of it. It's just like so time consuming.
Yeah,
Which is like I thought that was like interesting because I was like, oh, like I would think like when you discover a new species, like obviously that's kind of a big deal, but apparently like they don't like the science community doesn't really recognize it like that, which I thought was interesting. And
yeah, that
then
is interesting.
yeah, right? Like because you would think it'd be like, oh, like I found a new species, like cool, but there's actually this one it's in California. It might be at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, but there's this guy that will like for $25,000, like you can pay this person to have like a species named after you, and I think that's like how he's trying to like fund his research and stuff. But
Yeah,
then Joe was telling us he's like by the time though that you like that $25,000 like you might only see like $4,000 of it or something because like you have to like pay like a fee I think to name it and then like you have to like spend all that time and that work and that effort like researching like all this stuff about it and submitting it to like the scientific like council or whatever so like in the end it's like not even really worth it it's just like which is like crazy because you would think like everyone like I would like want to know about new species. Like everyone is always like, oh yeah, there's so much, but like no one actually really cares about it, which I thought was very interesting.
yeah, that is interesting. I guess there's probably like criteria to which like animals are the most important to them. Like I guess if you find another worm, like great, you found another worm.
Right.
But they're probably more interested in like bigger animals.
Yeah, and so like also the reason I asked you about like the deep sea mining was because so I had to like look up some stuff for it and do some research, and it's actually really interesting because so there's this place in it's called the Japan Gas, Oil and Metals National Corporation, and they're trying to mine for seafloor massive sulfide. And it's because since Japan's an island, they really like rely heavily on mineral imports.
Mm-hmm.
So if they could like become able to like produce their own and mine their own minerals they obviously like wouldn't have to import that and they have like a lot of deposits they have like an abundant of deposits of this mineral on the floor and like honestly a lot of the minerals that are on the seafloor like are the ones that you are used in like phones and stuff
Yeah,
and so like those are becoming more and more rare so that's why like people are turning more to like the deep sea um to look for that. And so, I don't know if you know this, but China literally started building like man-made islands so that they can like expand their like exclusive economic zone and like have claims to those minerals because a lot of them are just like out in the middle of nowhere. And so like there's no like if it's out in the middle of the ocean, like no one country just has like a claim on it.
yeah,
So that's what like this kind of was like this little research thing was, but this also like this one was like the first time that metals have been mined from the seabed in like such big quantities because it's like a newer thing, so people are still trying to figure it out. But like Japan is like among one of the first to like mine so much of this mineral, so that it's gonna be interesting to see like how that plays out in the future, especially with like other as soon as like other countries like hop in and like how it's gonna affect like the biodiversity on the bottom of the floor.
yeah. That's definitely something to think about. I've seen people compare it to land mining and like um, that's technically no better. It's also very disruptive to the environment, and arguably a little bit more disruptive since it's on land and it can pollute our waterways and stuff like that. So I've definitely seen like a pros and cons list on both sides.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, we're at the time limit, so thank you so much for doing this with me.